In 1511, there was a widespread pro-Safavid rebellion in southern Anatolia by the Tukalu-Kizilbash tribe, known as the Akulu Rebellion, and an Ottoman army that was sent in order to put down the rebellion was defeated. A large-scale incursion into eastern Anatolia by Safavid Ghazis under Nkr Al+4 Al+Fa coincided with the accession of Sultan Selim I in 1512 to the Ottoman throne and became the casus belli which led to Selim's decision to invade Safavid Iran 2 years later. Selim and Ismail had been exchanging a series of belligerent letters prior to the attack. While the Safavid forces were at Chaldiran and planning on how to confront the Ottomans, Muhammad Khan Istajlu, who served as the governor of Diyarbakir, and Ali Khalifa, a commander who knew how the Ottomans fought, proposed that they should attack as quickly as possible. This proposal was rejected by the powerful Kizilbash officer Dermish Khan Shamlu, who rudely said that Muhammad Khan Istajlu was only interested in the province which he governed. The proposal was rejected by Ismail himself, who said, "I am not a caravan thief. Whatever is decreed by God will occur." Selim I eventually defeated Ismail at the Battle of Chaldiran in 1514. Ismail's army was more mobile and his soldiers were better prepared, but the Ottomans prevailed due in large part to their efficient modern army and possession of artillery, black powder and muskets. Ismail was wounded and almost captured in battle. Selim entered the Iranian capital of Tabriz in triumph on September 5 but did not linger. A mutiny among his troops, fearing a counterattack and entrapment by fresh Safavid forces called in from the interior, forced the triumphant Ottomans to withdraw prematurely. This allowed Ismail to recover. Among the booty from Tabriz was Ismail's favorite wife, for whose release the Sultan demanded huge concessions, which were refused. Despite his defeat at the Battle of Chaldiran, Ismail quickly recovered most of his kingdom, from east of the Lake Van to the Persian Gulf. However, the Ottomans managed to annex for the first time eastern Anatolia and parts of Mesopotamia, as well as briefly northwestern Iran. The Venetian ambassador Caterino Zeno describes the events as follows: "The monarch Selim, seeing the slaughter, began to retreat and to turn about, and was about to fly, when Sinan, coming to the rescue at the time of need, caused the artillery to be brought up and fired on both the Janissaries and the Persians. The Persian horses, hearing the thunder of those infernal machines, scattered and divided themselves over the plain, not obeying their riders' bit or spur anymore, from the terror they were in. It is certainly said that if it had not been for the artillery, which terrified in the manner related to Persian horses which had never before heard such a din, all his forces would have been routed and put to edge of the sword." He also adds that, if the Turks had been beaten in the Battle of Chaldiran, the power of Ismail would have become greater than that of Tamerlane, as by the fame alone of such a victory he would have made himself absolute lord of the East. After the Battle of Chaldiran, Ismail lost his supernatural air and the aura of invincibility, gradually falling into heavy drinking of alcohol. He retired to his palace, never again participated in a military campaign and withdrew from active participation in the affairs of the state. He left these to his vizier, Mirza Shah Hussain, who became his close friend and drinking companion. This allowed Mirza Shah Hussain to gain influence over Ismail and expand his authority. Mirza Shah Hussain was assassinated in 1523 by a group of Kizilbash officers, after which Ismail appointed Zakariya's son Jalal al-Din Muhammad Tabrizi as his new vizier. Ismail died on 23 May 1524 at the relatively early age of 36. He was buried in Ardabil and was succeeded by his son Thomas Pi. The consequences of the defeat at Chaldiran were also psychological for Ismail. His relationships with his Kizilbash followers were fundamentally altered. The tribal rivalries between the Kizilbash, which temporarily ceased before the defeat at Chaldiran, resurfaced in intense form immediately after the death of Ismail and led to 10 years of civil war, 930 and 41,524 until Shah Thomas regained control of the affairs of the state. The Safavids later briefly lost Balkh and Kandahar to the Mughals and nearly lost Herat to the Uzbeks. During Ismail's reign, mainly in the late 1510s, the first steps for the Habsburg-Persian alliance were set as well, with Charles V and Ludwig II of Hungary being in contact with a view to combining against the common Ottoman-Turkish enemy. Ismail is also known for his poetry using the pen. Name Cam plus, Arabic, point 7 and I Sinardadi wrote in the Azerbaijani language, a Turkic language mutually intelligible with Turkish and in the Persian language. He is considered an important figure in the literary history of Azerbaijani language and has left approximately 1,400 verses in this language, which he chose to use for political reasons. Approximately 50 verses of his Persian poetry have also survived. According to Encyclopedia Iranica, Ismail was a skillful poet who used prevalent themes and images in lyric and didactic religious poetry with ease and some degree of originality. He was also deeply influenced by the Persian literary tradition of Iran, particularly by the Shahnameh of Ferdowsi, which probably explains the fact that he named all of his sons after Shahnameh characters. Dixon and Weld suggest that Ismail's SHH plus was intended as a present to his young son Thomas. After defeating Muhammad Shabani's Uzbeks, Ismail asked Hatefi, a famous poet from Jam, Khorasan, to write a Shahnameh like epic about his victories and his newly established dynasty. Although the epic was left unfinished, it was an example of mathnos in the heroic style of the Shahnameh, written later on for the Safavid kings. Most of the poems are concerned with love, particularly of the mystical Sufi kind, though there are also poems propagating Shia doctrine and Safavi politics. His other serious works include the Nasihat-Me in Azerbaijani language, a book of advice, and the Unfinished on Me in Azerbaijani language, a book which extols the virtues of love. Along with the poet Imadaddin Assimi, Cat Plus is considered to be among the first proponents of using a simpler Azerbaijani language in verse that would appeal to a broader audience. His work is most popular in Azerbaijan, as well as among the Bektashis of Turkey. There is a large body of Alevi and Bektashi poetry that has been attributed to him. The major impact of his religious writings, in the long run, was the conversion of Persia from Sunni to Shia Islam. The following anecdote demonstrates the status of vernacular Turkish and Persian in the Ottoman Empire and in the incipient Safavid state. Cat Plus sent a poem in Turkish to the Ottoman Sultan Selim I before going to war in 1514. In a reply, the Ottoman Sultan answered in Persian to indicate his contempt.